Hello, everyone. Brian Jennings, the psychic scientist, the millennial dragon. This channel exists to process in a healthy way psychologically my pathological relationship with Quentin Tarantino. Quentin is a psychic clairvoyant, one of the most powerful in the world, who jumps into the mind of the actors in his films. I wrote him a series of letters about playing the lead in the movie Critic, which led to him canceling the film last April. And when I didn't bend to his psychic whim last June at De Niro Con, a screening of Jackie Brown, he and the cabal of degenerates that surround him entered into a Faustian covenant to compel me to madness so that I would commit suicide and he can have my scene for free. He has my intellectual property that he wants to use for the film. And now that he's failed to do that, in my fear, because I know what the fucking game is, he stole my wisdom and has entered into palpable black magic evil in an effort to destroy my body with his mind, So, what do I mean exactly, That he's using his mind as a weapon. He's sending out attacks of intention, using fetishes, not like a sexual fetish. I mean a fetish in the original interpretation of that word. An example being thus. That's funny here. Here's the legs. They're broken in half, but this is a fetish, It looks like a person, Anthropomorphic, And just so that we're clear, he's hiding behind his money, That he's doing depraved, base, disgusting, degenerate things, in an effort to destroy me, in an effort to drive me mad, Because his subtle bullshit tactics don't do anything to someone who's wise, And he's saying, no, I can do whatever I want. Meh, I'm famous. I can be fucking degenerate and evil. And if he tries to do any of the same things, I'll send people to assassinate him. That's This is why the idea of a lawsuit is a farce, this guy's gonna, He's done so much awful shit to me that now, so he's just gonna give me $200 million and then say, okay, now we're good. And he has to. As far as, money. That's, yeah, you can hire someone to kill me. Yeah, I could do the same thing too if I had a bunch of money. So, he preys on my compassion, that's my point. That he doesn't respect his family or the beautiful life that he has. That he debases the mercy seat, He shits on the Holy of Holies. He pisses on the Ancient of Days. That's that he thinks, My point being, that life is not an accident. It has a latent intellect within every cubic centimeter of space. In all instances of clairvoyance, is the adept, is the medium, using their conscious awareness to tap into the non-locality of consciousness, which persists, in every cubic centimeter of space. And so the highest levels of said expression have the adept, have the medium behaving like God, where you can heal the sick, and far easier, you can destroy someone. So I've written a novel. It's a novelization of my experiences with Quentin, and of course they're still unfolding, But, we're right in the middle of it right now, And so, real quick, I'll just offer an update. I did this morning, And so now, if you notice, there's 20 pentagons that go all the way around it, And so it's quite lovely, But it's not perfect, it's breathing. This is not a sterile, computer-generated image. It's all made with a drafting compass and a ruler. And so his only argument is that I've lost my mind. That's his argument. Meh. I don't know anything that he's talking about. Meh. I'm not interested in satanic occultism. Meh. I'm not interested in psychic phenomenon. I'm not interested in remote viewing. Right? Anyone who's done any fucking... Hang on a second. 1 second. Perpetual paranoia. Right? Had to lock the door. Anyone who's seen any interviews with his actors, right, will hear any of them say that he kept them in the room, right, while they were reading for 3 hours, 4 hours. Why do you think that is? Right? It's easy. This is not complicated logic. Right? Everyone around him supports his degeneracy. Everyone that I wrote in an effort to help us reconcile insulates his evil and or believes his lies. Right? How they can see all of this material that's just poured out of me in no time at all and say, no, he's just a raving lunatic, just like Quentin says, is beyond me. Right? They all know the games he plays. Right? Right? My point is that I know how to play them too. Right? However, it's a fucking violation. Right? It's a psychic violation. That's like what it is. Right? So, when he stuck his nose up at me and turned his back on me, rather than take my letter or look me in the eye, I said, no more. No more. 3 fucking months we've been doing this. Right? And so when I wrote him, I said, I'm not giving up on the role, but what I was really saying is that you violated my mind. Right? And so I decide when I give the gold or not. Not Quentin. It's my life, my mind. Right? And so he could have, at any point between here and there, right? He could have produced the non-disclosure agreement, said, there it is, you sign it. You be a fucking loser anywhere else. Hollywood ain't for you. Right? He wanted to think, oh no, my mind's stronger than his, and it's not. It's not. So my letter to the Pope should be arriving soon, and I'm going to keep writing him, right? And we're going to keep talking about it, right? And make no mistake, he is evil to me every day. Every day. Yesterday, 100%. Today, 100%. Right? He'll always deny it. Right? What is he going to say? No, yeah, I hate that guy. I'm a sorcerer. Right? And so when I say, again, right, we have to liberate, we have to elevate our understanding, right? Psychic scientist, right? The things that people refer to as psychic, clairvoyant, telepathy, right? Telekinesis, etc., remote viewing, right? These are the same things that people referred to as magic and sorcery in centuries past. They're not similar things, they're the same things, right? This logic is unequivocal, right? So, right? The novel's called Building a Coven, as in a coven of the witches, right? Which I have to do, right? He's kicking the movie back off in December, right? With whomever wants to cast their allegiances with a fucking degenerate, right? But if this thing remains occulted, right? If it's just me and him and, everyone that thinks his lies are the truth in on the joke, right? Then every single day that he shoots that film, he's gonna fucking torture me with a palpable evil that no court can ever try him on. And yes, I am suing him. I have filed suit. Right? Will he pay me? Will he not pay me? It's not about money. This ain't never been like this is a divine celestial resonance that we got going on here. Right? So, right? We're just getting to the good part now, right? Tribeca's come and gone. And I'm on the street seeking to resolve my issue with Quentin, who is Alistair Hoffman. I'll pick up where I left off. I mentioned in my letter I sent with the poems my disdain over the continued backhanded subtlety over my perpetual confusion and uncertainty. And this morning I awoke with the density of it all enslaving me to the ground. Below, walking out of the air and into my grave. I asked him then if this is all some sick joke. Pleaded then with him, as now to God, just for peace of mind. Are we not as close as anyone can be? Have I not shown my remorse, my shame over my behavior? Why must it continue? All of these thoughts and more, suicidal despair, hover perpetually over me. Is Alistair the architect of our separation? In the park this morning I paced fervent with tear ducts working perfect. Exhausted by these weeks on the street, my skeleton degrading each night I sleep on concrete. All is not well, though I do not know why. I told him my intention, that I'm going to write David Selinsky, Red Niche, and Dax Vushti. Alistair is, as always, very encouraging. Willow is much quieter of late, though she tells me she loves me. I am lost. In my agony, David came. It happened before, in New Orleans. He too is a writer, asking me what's wrong. I told him about Willow, our relationship, but at the same time it was overwhelming. I told him I would write, and asked him to leave. He told me he would help. I wrote all day. First Dr. Selinsky, to whom I explained the most, this being my third letter. Then Red Niche, then Dax Vushti. All over the west side. Some at the West Hollywood Park, some at the 3rd Street Promenade. By the time I finished, I was spent. Psychic exhaustion. Emotional destitution. I just proofread the letters and posted them. Counting out all the change I had afforded me some 65 cents. And so I swallowed my pride and asked the asshole ahead of me if he could help me post my letters. He looked wide-eyed with disdain at first, but when I assured him I didn't care about money, only posting my letters, he went out to his car and gave me $3 in quarters before escaping my lethal charm. As I left the post office, Alistair told me he'd reach out soon. While napping in the library this afternoon, I knew my letters arrived. 95 cents per envelope I paid. My experience invalidates priority shipping. David tells me he will overnight it from Paris. Niche yielded the most intrigue. He reached out to Saul Thomas Bands, being the cinematic adapter of his works, asking if it was true. Saul has known about me for a time. I've heard him before expressing his uncertainty. He called Alistair, who replied congenially, "He's a wreck, but he loves her and she loves him, and he loves me and I love him. He's my son-in-law." Saul congratulated him. I have deteriorated throughout the week. My confusion was spiraling further each night in these conditions, in relation to the other half of the equation. But tonight, Friday night, saw wisdom come to me. Willow was never sincere. She resents me. All of her tactics were rooted in fear of my curse. And rather than listen at all to me, as I've always listened to her, she felt it appropriate and necessary to continue in this vein of manipulation, psychic control. But now she is seeing that I have no cunning, no guile, no conspiracy. You violate me, I curse you. You ask me to love you, I love you. She doesn't like me placing hope upon her. It feels like she enjoys being a whore. Her family tell her I'm cool, and I tell her this is about her, but also about the role, that she can do whatever she wants. Just fucking be cool. Whatever. We're together, we're not together. Just relax. Yes, I am sincere when I tell her I love her. I am sincere always. It is the only appropriate path. I want everyone to be happy. I am interested in charity, giving, loving. But if she doesn't want to love me, I don't see why we can't be friends and I can't go to work. She wants to have her cake and eat it too. She can't spend any time with me because she is in love with me, and despises me for it. And we've been having this conversation in its myriad forms since New York. She doesn't want to not feel welcome on her father's last film set. But if she hates me, if she doesn't feel welcome because she doesn't want to be around me, I've never blamed Alistair for loving his daughter. Monday diminishes. The weekend was pure chaos. My depression has never been worse. Love seems some obtuse fable, a myth of epochs long past. By 10 p.m. Saturday night, I heard her moaning like a whore. I flew into a rage, screaming, "Fucking bitch! Disgusting fucking whore!" Annabella was kind, offering condolences, which were appreciated, but did not help. These are the games that interest her. Abhorrent psychosexual bullshit. Yesterday, she showed him my writing, her vision board, which is even worse, I guess. She's always been a whore. But my words are special. Her body is hers to defile as she sees fit, but my words are for her, not the fucking world. She's just like everyone else. Just like those fucking actors in New York. She's proven herself a statistic, seeing me as the masses all do. I am not a monkey in a cage, you miserable witch. He called me a tortured artist, and his empathy was palpable. Last night, more of the same. "Ethan, you know what I'm doing?" He threw her out, saying it's obvious she's interested in torturing me. He offered to come get me. I told him it was too weird. He was discussing it with someone, a roommate or a friend who seemed to understand. "I kind of get it," he says. "For the role, it's pretty legendary." Of course, he's not wrong. This morning I found a bag of white powder in the park around 6 a.m. I took a shower, walked back to the park, and chalked out one good line. I snorted into both nostrils. It could have been anything. It was very strong fentanyl. I did way too much. Within 1 minute I was dangerously intoxicated. I couldn't focus and began walking. I feared stopping. I threw the drugs in the trash in front of the library and made it down the stairs. Any number of people in similar straits would have lost their composure and injured themselves severely in falling down those steps. They were with me. They chided her, and she did say she didn't want me to die, though I do not believe that. As I walked by the entrance to the emergency room, Alistair pleaded with me to go in, but I decided to ride the wave and walk until I could no longer. They lauded my strength, and I began to come down after 10 a.m. I assume I was on the brink of an overdose. Has killed many. While napping in the library hungover, she came to me. But she gave me a vision of her cursed womb saying I'm pregnant. Her father expressed his frustration and disappointment in a single word. No. I told her I don't trust anything she says, but it is appropriately godless, loveless, devoid of any trace of dignity or self-respect. Therefore, being rooted in conniving evil, perhaps it is the only true thing she's ever said. I am lost. The disrespect of me, my power, our connection, relationship, inflames conspiracies devious, mischiefs manifold, and sorceries terrible to enter human hearing. Levi says in the History of Magic that the necromancers of the Dark Ages were ever in league with midwives who would run spikes through the newborn's ears and claim stillborn. Thereafter the sorcerer would unearth the lamb and distill the corpse into the elixir of life everlasting. I know this tactic, Willow's tactics, to be the pinnacle of amoral evil. In this devastation, this all-consuming despair, I drown in the cruelest conspiracies her feeble mind is incapable of conceiving. I see it. These reptilian ends, brought to maturity upon her head. As easy as anything. She is not clever, or smart, or wise. Her power is stolen, not earned. She knows nothing of devotion, quantum entanglement. Blind, directionless ambition is vacuous, fleeting, dangerous, as a hurricane or tornado. It destroys with complete abandon during its violent expression of self, and disappears into the nothing they emerged from, leaving only a measurable trail of pillage and destruction. It has no true self. It is comprised of all the elements it steals along the way, flashing a patchy mosaic misunderstood as identity. The only true magic surrounding any storm is the naming. A name has no power, however the act of naming. As when I named Willow Lilith. I cursed her. I have come too far. sacrificed my health and well-being. She can cast her spells, and I can cast mine. I have to write about it. It is the next logical step. Endless grief. I'll stop there. So, it's a novelization of my experiences with Quentin Tarantino on the psychic frontier regarding the movie Critic. Right? I lived on the street for a season while he tortured me. Right? Everything about his daughter, it's all bullshit. It's all him and maybe his wife and a couple other people, right? Going, hardy, har, 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 ha, 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 look how fucking clever we are, right? We're making this guy, right? Like, here, right? A memory is its own disease, if you remember the beginning of my novel, right? Right, that an adept, right? And again, right, maybe it's all him, right? Maybe it's all some sick intellectual exercise, and he's like touching himself, like he gets something out of it, knowing that he's making me hear bunch of different voices, right? And so again, like everything that I've heard in my mind, right, which I believed to be my psychic prowess, right, has all been Quentin, right? When I heard David Berlinski, right, in New Orleans before Tribeca, right, I mentioned it just in these pages, all bullshit, right? Quentin poisoned my mind with notions of David Berlinski wanting to interview me because Quentin wanted me to interview him. Right? Couldn't just write me a fucking letter, could he? Right? Couldn't just go beep, 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 beep. Send 7 words on an email. Come to Tribeca, interview me about cinema speculation. 8 words. 8 words. Oh, initiation by degrees. Right? Right? And just so that, like, we're all on the same page, right? Like, he has known the depth of my literary prowess. Right? He's right? I put the Platonic solids on the letters that I sent him in December of 2023. Right? I told him I was reading the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. I told him that I was reading Plato's Republic. Right? That this is, right? My point being, right? That he has nothing to teach me about the mind. Right? Right? And so those are some really nice passages, what I'll say about the book. Right? It's a really deplorable tactic, right? And so this is why I'm suing WME, right? William Morris Endeavor, right? Because that agent, Mike Simpson, right, has been aware of this campaign, right? Since Tribeca, which was last June, right? So that's 15 months, isn't it? Right? Right? That if he wasn't pathological and evil, just like Quentin, right? When I sent all those love poems, the 10 sonnets and the long form poem, the Thousand-Eyed Moth, right, to a woman who doesn't exist, right? That he, right, if he had any sort of ethical standard at all, that he would have reached out to me in some way and said, "It's time to move on. It's time to," right? Quentin doesn't have an adult daughter. You're not well. Right? That's, right? Yes, that's like no show business bullshit, right? No occulted, right? Initiation. No. No, you can do that with everyone else, but not with me in this thing, right? 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 His assistant, right? Like someone in on this joke, right? Should have had an ethical standard. Right? But they all said, "Okay, Quentin, you're handling it." Right? Quentin's the guy who makes us the money. So, right, that it's evil doesn't concern us. Right? And so that's why this channel exists, right? To remind everyone, right? Right? The only question, right? Like the only question here at all worth asking, right? And I've said it 1,000 times, I'll say it 1,000 more times, right? Is is there such a thing as clairvoyance, right? Is there such a thing as psychic phenomenon, right? Is there such a thing as remote viewing? And the answer is yes, unequivocally, right? This is like, honestly, like this is why Quentin hasn't said anything, right? This is why, right? Because he doesn't have there's no document to show where he told me practically what he wanted, right? He turned it into a fucked up mind game, right? And so, right? I played the same game in that moment and shoved a letter up to his face, right? And so he stuck his nose up at me and turned his back on me, and I said, no more violation. No, we're good. We're good. I don't have to give you what you want. Right? And that's right. That's my understanding. That's God in my heart saying, right? That fame, right? That money, that's not, right? That has nothing to do with like what's occurring here with wisdom. Right? Right? And so what I'm saying is that he abuses wisdom, and that's how he's got his money. Right? Is he a good writer? Yeah, of course. I'm not interested in, boring, predictable dialogue. That's like, right? And that's why I wrote him. Right? So, right? There is no daughter, right? I had to reveal myself in full, right? And we're getting there. Sure enough. Let's see, where are we now? 291 of 479 pages, so we still have quite a ways to go, but we're only like maybe 5 months from the end of the book. Right? Right? That it's been a dense braid of psychosexual torture, all in an effort for them to convince me to blow my head off. And it's mentioned, right? Like coming up in the pages to come, right? That he poisoned my mind with notions of me putting a gun in my mouth and putting it to my temple, and then led me to believe that it was my psychic prowess that gave them the image. Right? Sick. Right? Just base. Right? Right? He could be teaching his son how to play piano. Right? He could be coaching his son's soccer team. Right? He could be teaching his son how to write. Right? He could be, right? Rather than do any of those things, right? He could be taking his children to temple, right? Every day to remind them, right? How they got to be so blessed. Right? But rather than do that, right? He would rather, right? He would rather meditate on Baphomet. Right? There's nothing inherently evil about Baphomet. Right? That's what ignorant people want you to believe. Right? So, 30 minutes. I suppose I'll stop. I don't know what else I could say. Right? I felt Quentin being evil. That's why I started talking. And he'll always, all he can go is, no. Right? Right? He calls himself the elder statesman of cinema. What is that? Like, what does that tell you about cinema? I would say that it means that something needs to change. That the state of cinema, like if this guy is who we venerate, right? I could have just been a loser, right? Like that's, right? Like he could have said, okay, this is how I made my money. This guy doesn't want to play. Here's nothing. Here's $1 million for your scene. You sign the NDA and no Hollywood movie star Brian. And that's like then he would have been cool, right? Like then, right? Then he would have been reasonable, right? But he has a sick God complex, right? He can't stand the thought of someone who calls themselves an actor not bending to his psychic whim. Right? So, right? See what's good in your life. Be motivated by the right reasons. right? Love and giving, just like God. Know that life is not an accident. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Right? God bless. Uplift your soul to God.